Welcome to Life L'Chaim. On today's show, we welcome Zachary Goldberg from Forever Studios to talk about saving your family memories. And first is Joanne Caras, star of Miracles and Meals, who will tell us about her new show, which airs Mondays in primetime here on JLTV. We'll talk with Joanne right after these messages.
This is exciting for us. With us in studio today is Joanne Caras, who is the creator of the Holocaust Survivor Cookbook and Miracles on Meals. And you also have a new show on Monday nights at 9 p.m. on JLTV. Joanne, welcome to Life L'Chaim.
Thank you. We're so excited. We had no idea that this project would be able to have the ability to travel around the world and give us this wonderful opportunity through TV. So
great. Well, let's talk about
a visit from Israel would take all of this to come in to be a reality.
Right. Very good. Well, I want to talk about because this is what started it all.
Yes, it did.
The Holocaust Survivors Cookbook, and it's a wonderful book, and we have one in our home. So it's really a privilege to meet with you today. But talk about the motivation behind the Holocaust Survivors Cookbook.
It was 2005, and my son and my daughter-in-law would make Aliyah, becoming a citizen to Israel. I'd never been to Israel before, Lee. And I promised him, they left in January, in the spring that I would go and visit. And of course my trip would take me to the Wailing Wall, the Old City, the Dead Sea. But I didn't know walking into a soup kitchen would change my life.
Mm-hmm. But you weren't a chef. You were obviously a good cook, but that was not a part of your background. You were an author,
nothing.
So go on with your story.
That's exactly right. My son and my daughter-in-law are trying to make a life there, and they're volunteering in this soup kitchen. He told me about it. He said, I want to take you there when you're visiting. But we walk into this building. It looks like a little diner. I sit down. I give them my order. They bring the food, and my son says to me, this is the soup kitchen where Sarah and I are volunteers. Lee, I look around, I see soldiers, men and women. I see businessmen, I see families. And I said to my son, this isn't a soup kitchen. He said, this is a soup kitchen. He said, everyone is treated with dignity.
So there's no line. It's not like people are going through the line. And
that's exactly right. They're served. And I said to him, first of all, we have money. Why should we eat here? He said, we eat together and we leave tzedakah. We leave our change at the door. But you know, I looked around and I knew that that bit of tzedakah was not enough money to support the soup kitchen. Mm-hmm. So I inquired, and the rabbi, who had an office upstairs, came down, and I said to him, Rabbi, how is it that you're feeding all of these people and with such dignity? He said, mostly through sponsors from the United States. And I turned around to my son and I said, when I get home, I want to create a project that will help raise money for this soup kitchen. As I was told, 500 meals a day were being served. And I got back to America. I called my son. I said, what happened to me in this soup kitchen? He said, I knew you'd be impressed, Mom. And I said, I'm going to be true to my word. And my son said, why don't you do a cookbook? You love collecting other women's recipes, putting them in little flimsy ones. We did it for a show. You know, we've raised $10,000. And I said, let me see. So just after that, my daughter-in-law's grandmother dies, her bubby. And I get a beautiful card, and it says, Sarah's bubby was such a beautiful mother and grandmother to her children. She was a Holocaust survivor. And Lee, I'm telling you, the idea would just come to me just like that. Mm-hmm. And I said to my family, is this a project that you would all take a part of? And they agreed. So the Holocaust Survivor Cookbook was born in that instant.
So how did you reach out and gather the survivors and their families?
Well, you know, like any project, you have to have a goal. Mm-hmm. We decided 100 stories and 200 recipes. We lived in Maryland. The obvious place to start would be the Holocaust Museum. So we sent letters to them. My husband sent letters to Jewish publications all over the world. Even in Israel, Hadassah put a little blurb in. a magazine to help us. 6 months though, I'm working on this project every day. Not one story comes to me. And you know, I was so disappointed, and I said to my mother, you know, people don't want to share these stories. And my mother said this to me, Joanne, continue, you're going to get not one, but two, and you'll finish the book. And as I always say, you know, I always tried to be a good daughter.
Right.
And I continued
yeah,
over
right,
the
Mom.
next, right, over the next 2 years, we would be able to collect 129 stories from South Africa, South America, the United States, Canada, Israel. And one day I get a telephone call from a lady, Joanne, I'm calling you from New Zealand, and I want to share my husband's story for your cookery book. This is the recipe,
The challah bread.
and the challah, right here is the recipe on our book. Because you know what? It said to me that our message had traveled to the other side of the world. And we were able to get 129 stories, 250 kosher recipes. But you know, we finished this book. We had to decide, how is it that we want to give it to the world? And I wanted people to know what they were a part of, that by buying this book, they were not only remembering survivor stories through making the recipes, but that they were a part of this beautiful project to help feed those 500 hungry Israelis every day.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We decided to just have me go and speak all over the world.
Very good. Well, we're going to get more into that. But first of all, I want to let my audience know that the smell of this challah bread is
it's true,
unbelievable.
it's true, it's
and I
true.
I can't wait for the show to be over to dive into
absolutely,
it. So
absolutely.
when we come back, we're going to talk more about the Holocaust Survivor Cookbook, your second book, Miracles on Meals, and your new show on JLTV.
And my TV show. Isn't
Very
it
good.
exciting? Thank you.
We'll be right back. We're back in studio with Joanne Caras. Joanne, it's great to have you here and
you.
again smell this wonderful bread. But what I found is these stories are wonderfully written and extremely compelling. So the emotion, the food is great, but the emotion and power of this book, both these books, is what really is just great. So talk about that.
Well, what happened is that we feel that this is our responsibility of our generation to share these stories with children that will never have a chance to meet a survivor. And we've given you a beautiful way, an easy way, and with my TV show, I show you how to make the recipes. And then I invite you with your family to tell the stories. And that's how Miracles and Meals, the second book, second volume, would come about. We had already traveled around 150 cities in the world telling of our World Mitzvah project for Karma High Air Soup Kitchen in Israel, feeding them through our project. And I was speaking to a group. After I speak, I sign books. A young girl and an elderly woman were waiting for me. And after I finished, they sat down. And the young woman said to me, "This is my Bubby, my grandmother. She's never told her story to anyone in the world. I was hoping that after she heard you speak, she would tell her story to you, so we would be able to have it." And I'll tell you, Lee, I sat down, I held her hand. She told me her story. We cried. Her granddaughter cried. Even my husband cried. And do you know, on the way home as well, we were going to our hotel because we were in Canada. My husband said this to me, "What's going to be the name of our second book?" And we decided Miracles and Meals.
Well, not only your second book, but it's also the name of your show on JLTV.
Yes, it is.
And we're going to take a sneak peek of your show, which is on Monday nights at 9 p.m.
Thank you.
Here's a quick look.
Bronia first was born in Poland. She was just a 9-year-old child when she was taken to a concentration camp with her mother, her father, and her brother. Her father would be shot in one of the camps, but Bronia would make it through to all 4, but she'd be separated from her mother and her brother. And after the war, she would go into an orphanage, and she would be there with the nuns. And a Jewish father would come looking for his very own daughter, going from orphanage to orphanage, giving them a description of his daughter, who would be about 13 now, the same age that Bronia was. And when he gave the descriptions to the nun, she brought out Bronia. And Bronia knew that her father had been killed, but she would say to him in Yiddish, "Please take me out of here so I can get back to my home and find my own family." Do you know, this man did exactly that.
The show looks great. How did you get started with it?
I was speaking in California. I had a 2-week tour going from town to town sharing my story. And someone said to me, "Why don't you go and be interviewed on JLTV?" I called him up. I said, "I'm on town. I have a great story to tell you." And do you know, when I left there, I said to them, "Do you know, I could be your next Rachel Ray. Your Jewish Rachel Ray, as a matter of fact." And the next day, they offered me my own show for a whole year. We're so excited and really grateful to have the opportunity to be on your same network, sharing our story, and really hoping that this message will have a chance. As you know, 35 million homes and 116 countries are able to see this. So instead of traveling every day, it will give me some opportunity to be home in my kitchen. And then we're going to be doing some of our shows all over. We just finished a show in the soup kitchen in Israel, in Karma Ha'ir, making cholent for 50 people for Shabbos. And you talk about spices. They look like tin cans. We have like coffee in. We're the size spices going into this cholent. But really exciting.
That's great.
We know that they're going to be loving all of the shows, and we hope that they won't miss any. Monday nights.
Well, I'm not going to ask you what are some of your favorite recipes, but I know that there are a number of stories that really touched you. Can you share some of those with our audience?
Absolutely. Rachel Chasen from Israel would tell us about her starving in Auschwitz. She said, "We were in labor camp and we had a morning break. And so the women would lay on the dirt sharing their stories and their smells of their kitchen, just like you said, you could smell this challah." And she said, "When it was my turn, I always told the same recipe. It was stuffed cabbage, picking the greenest head of cabbage, putting it into the boiling water, and then taking them out gently, peeling the leaves off, filling them with meat, rice, spices, tucking them into their little envelopes, putting them into the next pot, and covering them with the tomato sauce, only using real tomatoes." She would tell the women, and they would listen. The whistle would blow, their break would be over. But Lee, for an instant, these recipes would touch their souls. They would feed their souls. But yet that recipe would never touch their mouths. And this would give them the strength to make it through. How powerful when you eat that stuffed cabbage in your house at your table, and remember that it was never eaten, but yet it would give them the strength for us to be able to share their story of survival.
Right, and I'm sure what was wonderful is that the family members who came up to you, this was, to share that with you must have been a very cathartic experience for them as well.
They loved thinking that their family members starved, whether they were in hiding, forest, concentration camps, that today their stories being told will be told forever, but also the money from this project is feeding hungry people today. And they have written such beautiful letters that there wasn't any other way in the world that they would like to be remembered and be honored by. So you know, it's just been such a beautiful project. Everywhere I go to speak, people are touched.
Right, and we got about a minute left, but tell our audience how they can incorporate this book into a fundraiser.
I would love to come and speak at a shul, a synagogue, a federation, community center. I do not charge a speaker's fee, only my expense. My husband and I travel together. But we invite them, first of all, I give them 5 or 6 recipes to make, so when people come in, they get to taste the recipes, and I tell the story, just as I did with you today, my trip to Israel. Then I tell about 10 of the powerful stories in our cookbooks, both of our cookbooks, and talk about some of the projects that came off using this book in the public school, using this book as a child's program to be able to interview other survivors in their communities. So it's spreading out all over. Right. We're so excited that the project has taken its own little twirl in the world, besides what we wanted was to support the soup kitchen.
Very good. And outside of a fundraiser, they can go to your website.
Yes, and they can purchase our book, which
Holocaust Survivors.
Just HolocaustSurvivorCookbook.org. We have little videos, all the information, the soup kitchen, and also how they can purchase them. So thank you, Lee, for giving me this opportunity. And I'll look forward to all of your viewers coming and watching us on Monday night at 9 p.m.
Joanne, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
With us in studio today for our Eye on Jewish Business segment is Zachary Goldberg, founder and president of Forever Studios. Zachary, welcome to Life L'Chaim.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Zachary, tell us about Forever Studios.
Well, we started off, actually, the story goes back to 2005. I originally had a company that did, believe it or not, home inventories for people. We scanned documents, we took pictures of their home for safekeeping, and over time, people started asking us, I have an old home video of my mother. I have a film reel of our wedding, can you do that? So over time, we started to get more and more into helping people relive their memories. And it turned into a viable business for us. And one day, someone walked into the store, and it was a Saturday, and he was a doctor in Boynton Beach, and he had this old box of audio reels. And he said, Zachary, please take incredible care of this. This is my father. Back when we were in Germany, I've never heard these before. My father's since been deceased for 20 years. And I said, sure, I'm an audio engineer, I'll do it myself, I'll make sure we do an incredible job. So sure enough, I was transferring the audio, and you could hear like a baby screaming in the background, his father speaking in German and so forth. And he comes back in a few days later. I gave him his old box of audio reels, I gave him his new pristine CDs, and he leaves the store and he calls me 35 minutes later. And he says, Zachary, and I said, yeah. He goes, I just want to let you know the last 30 minutes in my car have been the most amazing 30 minutes of my life. And I said, really, why, doctor? And he said, you just brought my father back to life. And I realized at that moment, we started this company helping people scan their documents and backing up their computers. And over time, we help people relive the most precious moments of their life, getting married, having an anniversary, the birth of a child, whatever it may be. And at that moment, it came to me that the most amazing thing we have is our family. So why not start a company that only helps people celebrate their whole lifetime of memories through these amazing productions?
I know from my own personal experience, a few months ago, I had our wedding tape, which was on a beta product, and I had it converted to DVD so that my kids, who were just a little bit younger than my wife and I were when we got married, and for them to see our wedding and to see our friends about their same age now, it was just a wonderfully emotional experience as we all sat around and watched it together. So talk about that and some of the other products that you can put together for people.
Yeah, that's great. Sharing that experience with your children is one of the main reasons why we've created Forever Studios. Because we realize, especially in today's age, going back 100 years, we didn't have digital devices to save photos and videos on. We have these paper photos and the old beta tapes as years went on and so forth. So if we don't take advantage of the digital devices and archiving equipment that we have today, those memories will be lost forever. And you know, going back even further beyond your marriage, where did your family come from? Did like in some cases, did they live through a war? Did they come here into Ellis Island? Did they escape a war in Russia to get here? Did somebody go through the Holocaust? If those stories aren't told and relived through creating a movie biography or a montage or whatever it may be, then your children and your children's children and beyond will never understand the heritage and the history of your family.
Right. And so what are some of the majority of the products that you may see, that you may get in, that you're looking to convert?
We get everything. We get old home movies on videotape, on VHS, Beta, U-matic, whatever it may be. We get 8mm, 16mm, Super 8 film reels. We get photos, we get slides, we get negatives. We get old audio reels that were recorded as well. Pretty much anything and everything we convert it to digital. Once we convert it to digital, the neat thing is, the first step is making sure your memories are preserved. The second step, and one of the things that is unique about Forever Studios, is we can take those old memories and make them into a whole number of things. We can make an incredible photo book. We can make a cinematic montage. We can make a full movie biography, as I talked about before. Or we can just make a simple video.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the what might be written and said over those movie biographies, if it's slides, how is that produced?
That's a good question. We have a staff where we basically look at the entire life of not only the person we're living, but also the production that we're going to do. We have a journalist who basically sits down with each individual, whether it be a couple or a family or whatever it may be, and gets to understand who they are. We don't just sit someone down on the couch and ask them the same questions, tell us about your childhood, tell us about your first job. We try to understand who each individual is. We try to understand what their values are. We try to understand what do they want to impart to future generations. Based on that and the media that they provide to us, their old home movies and so forth that you described before, we actually write a script out or an outline of what their movie will be. So it may have different chapters. If somebody spent their whole life dedicated to wanting to sail around the world, that was their hobby, that was their adventure, we might have, you know, a few chapters on that. If somebody was an incredible philanthropist and dedicated their life to giving back to the community, we want that to come across in the movie. So we try to incorporate the values of who they are and what they give us and make each movie unique.
In about a minute we have left, talk about the cinematic montage and just go into detail on some of the photo books you might do or other products.
Sure. Well, there's a few things that we do right now that we think are very special. One is a cinematic montage and two are memorial videos. Cinematic montages we can create for any occasion. Somebody getting married, someone having an anniversary. We just did one for a girl who's graduating high school and she's an incredible gymnast. She might go to the Olympics. So we do that for any occasion throughout your life. But even more special and something that we're paying a lot of attention to right now is we look at the funeral homes. We look at someone that's passed away, unfortunately. And you go to a funeral home and to us it should be a joyous moment. You should want to celebrate the lifetime of someone who is so precious to you. So in order to do that, we think that could truly be brought to life in incredible imagery, pictures and videos and so forth of their life. So we're working with funeral homes, local and otherwise, to try to give people access to these beautiful creations that they can make to celebrate the lifetime of somebody.
Very good. And Zachary, how can our audience get in touch with you?
They can go to our website, foreverstudios.com, or they can call us at 561-235-7808, and we'd be happy to help them with anything.
Very good. Zachary Goldberg, Forever Studios, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition. For more information on our show, please visit us on the web at tolifelchaim.com. I'm Lee Lazerson. Thank you very much for joining us, and to life, l'chaim.